And it burns, burns, burns. Ring of fire. Ring of fire. Hello, everyone. It's Charlton. And here is a big chunk of George Stephanopoulos' interview with James Comey. I guess the interview is super long. That's going to air on Sunday because here's about 5 minutes of it. It talks about Comey's meeting with Trump at Trump Tower on, I believe, January 6th. I'm almost certain. His first meeting with him, and they talk about the dossier and other things in Russia. It's totally weird. It really is. I mean, it makes you cringe many times. I think Comey does not come off looking good at all. I think he looks petty and many other bad things. It's just not a good look for him. So, but one thing I wanted to mention before I play it is that actually the day before this meeting, the day before Comey goes to Trump Tower to meet with Trump, he was meeting with the President Obama. This was, when Trump was president-elect. President Obama, Biden, Sally Yates, the Deputy Attorney General at the time, and Susan Rice. And this later came out after the fact. We never knew about this, and they don't mention it here. So, and they're talking about the Russia investigation in this meeting with the President. And this is the one where Susan Rice memorialized it in an email to herself. She sent an email from her government email to her personal email so that she would have a record of this, and document it, just like he did, with the memo thing. So she probably knew she may need it at a later date because she knew Comey, maybe. I don't know. But they're talking about the Russia investigation, and supposedly Obama, according to Susan Rice memorializing it, said, we got to do this by the book. But the very next day, he's going up to meet with Trump and kind of, shove the dossier in his face as more or less a veiled threat of, this is what we kind of have on you. Or this is the dirt that could be embarrassing to you, and he does it in this passive-aggressive way where he pretends like he's he's looking out for him and that he's got his back. It's just hilarious. The day before he's meeting with Trump, he's meeting with Obama, Trump's political opposition about Russia. I mean, you could do the math, dude. So here's the. And you know what? Let me just go through it. And he never told Congress about this. He didn't. And in his prepared statement for the record, to I think it's Grassley and Lindsey Graham. It is Grassley and Graham. They uncovered this email about Susan Rice. So in his statement for the record, provided the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence notes, I have tried to include information that may be relevant to the committee. So I guess he didn't think that this was relevant to the committee because he doesn't include this meeting with the president and the vice president in his statement to them. And that later in his testimony, he said he met with Obama twice alone, okay? And that, he says, Comey's testimony mentions Obama, though. He writes, I spoke alone with President Obama twice in person and never on the phone, once in 2015 to discuss law enforcement policy, and a second time briefly for him to say goodbye in late 2016. And I guarantee you that the alone thing, the qualifier alone, as it says here, to describe his meetings with Obama, that would be his way of, saying, well, I was, that's what I was talking about when I met with him alone. And he didn't include this meeting in his testimony. All right, sorry. I'm just setting this up, dude, because they don't tell you. Here it is. It's totally weird.
Calling President Trump dishonorable for firing Comey, and the former FBI director even it to a mob boss. Very strong words.
He did that time and time again. He also writes that the president is unethical, untethered to truth. And guys, he went even farther in the interview. I spent several hours this week with him. It was such an intense experience that I couldn't believe at times what I was hearing. And Comey said he could not believe what he was saying. Startling and unprecedented judgments from a former FBI director about a sitting president.
January 6, 2017, Trump Tower. FBI Director James Comey set to meet President-elect Donald Trump for the first time.
As you headed into Trump Tower that day, were you nervous?
Yes.
Comey was with a group of intelligence agency heads, briefing Trump and his top aides on how the Russians interfered in our election.
President-elect Trump's first question was to confirm that it had no impact on the election. And then the conversation, to my surprise, moved into a PR conversation about how the Trump team would position this and what they could say about this. They actually started talking about drafting a press release with us still sitting there. And the reason that was so striking to me is that that's just not done. That the intelligence community does intelligence, the White House does PR and spin.
You also said you were struck by what they didn't ask.
Very much. No one, to my recollection, asked, so what's coming next from the Russians? How might we stop it? What's the future look like? It was all, what can we say about what they did and how it affects the election that we just had?
Comey then asked to meet alone with Trump to warn him about that now infamous Steele dossier, unverified information on Trump's ties to Russia, including allegations of Trump's encounters with prostitutes in Moscow.
I'm about to meet with a person who doesn't know me. He's just been elected president of the United States. By all accounts, and from my watching him during the campaign, could be volatile. And I'm about to talk to him about allegations that he was involved with prostitutes in Moscow and that the Russians taped it and have leverage over him.
Was there any choice there? Why, if this was salacious and this particular part of the dossier unverified, still unverified, by the way?
Yes. So far as when I got fired, it was unverified.
Did you tell him that the Steele dossier had been financed by his political opponents?
No. I don't even think I used the term Steele dossier. I just talked about additional material.
But did he have a right to know that?
That had been financed by his political opponents? I don't know the answer to that. It wasn't necessary for my goal, which was to alert him that we had this information.
How graphic did you get?
I think as graphic as I needed to be. And I started to tell him about the allegation was that he had been involved with prostitutes in a hotel in Moscow in 2013 during a visit for the Miss Universe pageant, and that the Russians had filmed the episode. And he interrupted very defensively and started talking about it. Do I look like a guy who needs hookers? And I assumed he was asking that rhetorically. I didn't answer that, and I just moved on and explained, sir, I'm not saying that we credit this. I'm not saying we believe it. We just thought it very important that you know.
Did you tell him you thought it wasn't true, or you didn't know if it was true or not?
I never said I don't believe it, because I couldn't say one way or another.
How weird was that briefing?
Really weird. It was almost an out-of-body experience for me. I was floating above myself, looking down, saying, you're sitting here briefing the incoming president of the United States about prostitutes in Moscow.
January 27th. At a private dinner in the White House, President Trump raises the issue again.
Says he may want me to investigate it to prove that it didn't happen. And then he says something that distracted me, because he said, if there's even a 1% chance my wife thinks that's true, that's terrible. And I remember thinking, how could your wife think there's a 1% chance you were with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow? I'm a flawed human being, but there's literally zero chance that my wife would think that was true. So what kind of marriage to what kind of man does your wife think there's only a 99% chance you didn't do that? And I said to him, sir, when he started talking about it, I may order you to investigate that. I said, sir, that's up to you, but you'd want to be careful about that, because it might create a narrative that we're investigating you personally. And second, it's very difficult to prove something didn't happen.
Did you believe his denial?
Honestly, never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but I don't know whether the current president of the United States was with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow in 2013. It's possible, but I don't know.
I got to say, that took my breath away.
Oh, I would imagine so.
And the
Dude, it's so weird. It's just the fact that he's saying that over and over again and talking about his marriage in that sense, in that way. It's just really rotten. I mean, I'm telling you, he doesn't look good in this. Comey looks terrible, and I think that was just really just weird, dude. Totally. So, and I didn't even have it pulled up here, but I'm going to do it right now. I guarantee you, I know the president has already tweeted about this, because that came out, and sure enough, it says James Comey is a proven leaker and liar. Virtually everyone in Washington thought he should be fired for the terrible job he did, until he was, in fact, fired. He leaked classified information for which he should be prosecuted. He lied to Congress under oath. He is a weak and untruthful slimeball who was, as time has proven, a terrible director of the FBI. His handling of the crooked Hillary Clinton case and the events surrounding it will go down as one of the worst botch jobs of history. It was my great honor to fire James Comey. Wow. You know, I'm just saying, dude, he's toying with the master, man, which is Trump. Trump is the master of this. And I mean, honestly, everything he said about Trump, I agree. Like, I mean, you know, does he look like a guy who needs that? It's so ridiculous. It's just sick, you know. And believe me, all right, and it's all fake. It's all false. And Comey knows that. He's talking about spin and stuff like that, and that the White House spins. But the day before, he's meeting with the previous White House, the outgoing White House, doing just that. Hello! Thank you for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.